Build a business that honors God, make him your CEO, and you would be surprised how simple that really is and what actually comes with it. Right in this book, in Proverbs chapter 3, King Solomon gives us 6 very clear lessons on how to run a business that God is not just willing to guide and protect, but bless beyond what you could ever imagine. So this is the next video in our Proverbs for Entrepreneur series. And today, lesson number 1 is treat people well. And I know this is not groundbreaking. It's not some kind of new hack. It's not a new concept to just be nice to people. But let me tell you why this is so important. Do this little exercise with me. Close your eyes. Think about it. If you were to think of a Christian brand or some kind of faith-based business, what do you think of? What comes to your mind? Is it a Christian clothing brand where they put a cross on everything? Is it some kind of item where they put a Bible verse on everything, they engrave it on there? Is that what you picture? And to be clear, there's nothing wrong with either of those ideas. But my only question about that is what makes your business different from every other business other than the fact that you can see a cross on it? What's the difference? Because if it's only that you have a cross on your product, if that's the only thing that makes it a Christian business, then what about somebody who runs a lawn care business? What about somebody who is in some kind of medical or some kind of construction or consulting or some kind of sales? What about these people? What about those businesses? Are they not also Christian businesses just because you can't put a cross on a service? No, obviously not. But the answer is how you treat people. That's what makes you different. That's the foundation of a faith-based business. In verses 3 through 4, it says, "Never let loyalty and kindness leave you. Then you will find favor with both God and people, and you will earn a good reputation." Now, what this means for your business is how you serve your clients, how you treat your team, how you treat your people. It is a representation of your faith. It is a representation of God. You are created in his image. How you treat people is a representation of him. This is the foundation of a faith-based business. A business that honors God is first one that treats people well. And let me tell you, the best businesses I've ever seen, the best businesses I've ever been a part of, were just viewed from the outside, are the ones where people want to be a part of it. Whether it's as a client or as a business partner, they want to be there. If you want a business that grows with or without you, you need people who care about the business, whether or not they gain something from it. That's how you grow a gigantic business. People need to care about it, but you also know you're doing something right on the client side of things when you start to get what exactly as this verse says, you earn a good reputation. When you start to get referrals, you know that's you when you're working with somebody or you're done working with somebody and they ask, how can I tell you about somebody else? Can I introduce you to my friend? How can I let other people know about your service? You know you're doing it right when you start to hear that. And you're not going to hear it from everybody. Not everybody who loves what you do is that out there and they just want to put everything out there. Not everybody has that personality, but if you were to ask for referrals, they're willing to give it to you because you've earned a good reputation with not just God, but with people too. Lesson number 2 is to let God actually lead the business. And again, not a crazy one. It's kind of obvious, but we hear it all the time. Let God lead your business. But I very rarely see and hear how to actually do that. I think maybe that's just my personality, that where I hear a concept, I hear somebody give me advice, but it's just like, okay, now how do I actually do that? It's a good concept. It sounds good, but what does that actually mean? Let me put it this way. Do you treat God as if he is your CEO, or do you treat him as if he's your janitor? And both, they deserve your respect, but the direction of the company, the direction of the business does not depend on the janitor. In verses 5 through 6, it says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not depend on your own understanding." And I see this in business where too many business owners, they have very strong control issues. Now, I might even be one of those people. I'm very specific. I like things to be done a certain way, and to a certain extent, you need to be like that if you're going to grow a business. But it doesn't come before God, and you don't come to God as the janitor when you need something to be cleaned up. You made a mess, and now you want to talk to God. You come to God with every decision, not just when you've made a mess, But when you've had a success, when you have some kind of idea, when you have questions, and as much as you think you care about your business, if you are one of those people that has control issues, as much as you think you care, God cares more. Doesn't even matter what it is. It could be your family. It could be your health. It could be, yes, your business. It could be literally anything else. As much as you think you care, God cares a little bit more. So it might be a good idea to allow him in your business. And that all starts, as simple as it sounds, by recognizing his voice. Now, you can't actually do that if you've never read his word. So if you want to recognize his voice, you have to read his word. You have to read scripture. You have to spend time around the right people who are also reading scripture. Reading his word will help you identify his voice. Because let's be honest, there's more than one voice in your head. You have your voice in your head. You have God's voice in your head. You won't be able to pick between the two, but you also have the enemy. And that could literally be the devil, or that could just be distractions. That could be somebody else in your mind that is trying to pull you away from what you should be doing. There is more than one voice in your head. There's a lot. Our world, especially now, is full of distractions. If you can't pick out God's voice and out of all the other voices in your head, how could you involve him in your decisions? You can't. And that all starts by, as simple as it sounds, reading his word, which is part of the reason I'm actually doing this series. I'm forcing myself to read every single chapter of Proverbs and take every lesson that I possibly can and to share it with you. The answers start to become familiar when you can recognize his voice. You can hear it throughout your daily life. It might even be through a conversation with somebody else. And when I say hear his voice in your head, that's what I mean. You start to recognize the answers without him having to send a burning bush right in front of you to grab your attention. You start to see the answers because you recognize how he operates. Now, very quickly, if you are still here, I'm going to get through lessons 3 through 6. But these first two are they're very foundational. These are the first two lessons that I was able to take from this chapter. But these next lessons, these are how you scale. These are the more higher law kind of lessons. And so if you are somebody who's trying to build something big and you want to do it with good people and for the right reasons, stay for these lessons, because this is where it's at. Lesson number 3 is to honor God first with your best. I'm going to read the verses to you, and then I'll give you my take from this. But it says in verse 9, it says, honor the Lord with your wealth. So it talks about money, and with the best part of everything you produce. So there's 2 parts in just that one verse. So we're going to talk about 2 different things. We're going to talk about wealth second. We're going to talk about money second, but we're going to talk about the second, that second part of the verse. We're going to talk about that one first. Everything you produce. So if we just sit back and take a step back, you are not just money. You are not just producing money. You are not called. Your calling is not revolving around money. Your calling produces a lot more than just that. You are called to steward not just money, but your time, your energy, your resources, how you treat other people. And if you're called to honor God with your best, not just your money, what are you honoring him with? What does that part actually mean? Well, I already gave you the examples, your time, your energy, but your effort, your intention. Those are probably the 2 biggest ones. You don't hear, if you were to go to a graduation, who do they bring up to speak? They don't bring the person with the lowest grades. They bring the valedictorian up there. They bring the person with the highest grades, so that because that's the only honoring thing to do. Even if the person with the lowest grades wanted to go speak, it's not very honoring. It's not a good look. It's nothing good if I were to go up there with straight C's and D's and say, hey, I want to thank my parents. And you might have the right intention, but they're for helping me get through school. Maybe you were really, I don't know. You get the point, right? They don't bring the lowest grades up there. They bring the highest grades, because the best and the first way to honor anybody with anything is to do something well in their name. And you cannot do that if you're always running on empty. So this one is for the people, for the entrepreneurs, for you, if you're always burnt out. If you're making money, but you're never fulfilled, if you're always tired, if you're always running on empty, this is for you, because you can't give what you don't have. You can't produce something and give your best effort to something if you're always just empty. You're running at 50%. How are you possibly going to give somebody else 100%? How are you going to give God anything over 50%? That's not very honoring. It's not a God honoring business if it's always running on empty. If this is you, one thing I am learning, if you watch my last video, I was in Costa Rica. Part of the reason I was there was because I was forcing myself to rest. I'm speaking, all of these lessons I'm speaking to myself, but God gave us Sabbath for a reason. It wasn't because he needs our worship. And it says it in scripture, Sabbath was made for man. Man was not made for Sabbath. He does not need our worship. He does not need us to take a Sabbath. The Sabbath was created for us to sit back and relax and rest for one day out of the week. You have 6 other days to rest. You one day out of the week, take time to sit back, relax, and honor God by taking care of yourself. It is an honoring thing to do to make sure you are healthy enough to go and do your best. It is an honoring thing. But let's talk about the second part. Money. I know when I say honor God with your wealth and just be generous, and everybody always thinks about money first, and that is a big part of it. And I don't need to talk too much about this. I have a couple of points that I want to talk about, but generosity, to be clear, is not just with your money, but when it does come to your money in a God-honoring business, it's not something extra either. It's not a side afterthought. It is part of the business plan. Your time is something you can be generous with. That's something you need to be careful with. Your energy, your efforts, you can be generous with those things. When it comes to your money, though, why is that so important? Because obviously, we start business to be able to make money for financial freedom. You could be one of those people, I love what I do. Good, that's great, but you still have to produce an income from it if you're going to keep the business running. Okay, so money will always be a part of it, which is why it's so important. If you can't get away from it, you have to understand it. You have to have the right mindset around it. And generosity, it is not just a small act of kindness. It is, but it's not just that. It is telling God, it is letting God know that I'm going to take care of somebody else. I'm going to help somebody with this because I know you're going to take care of me. It is the definition of an abundance mindset. At the root of faith is generosity. It's generosity and gratitude. Those are the two things at the root of faith. To build anything great, you need an abundance mindset. So to be generous with your money, that's how you start the abundance mindset, to understand that there will always be more. That is the definition of the abundance mindset, and that's exactly what you need. It will always come back. It will always come back. And there are scientific studies that talk about generosity and what it does to your brain. And people who are generous, on average, they actually make more money. And it's because, one, they're happier people, and happier people are just more productive. But two, I would argue it's because of that abundance mindset. It is the person who operates out of abundance rather than scarcity will always win. That is why. Lesson number 4. And this one is a very, it's a reoccurring theme. And so as long as it keeps talking about it, I'm going to keep saying it. Lesson number 4, value wisdom more than money. I see this as an insurance policy. Wisdom is an insurance policy, is protection. Because if you were to lose everything today, would you be able to rebuild? That's a question you should be asking yourself. Lesson number 4, value wisdom more than money. Would you be able to rebuild? The answer to that question depends on the wisdom that you hold. In verses 13 to 15, it talks about joyful is the person who finds wisdom. It is more profitable than silver. The person who has wisdom has a veil of protection around them at all times. It is the reason why Solomon, of all things he could have asked for, when God came to him in his dream and said, "Tell me what you want and I'll give it to you." This is the reason why Solomon asked for wisdom above everything else. He could have asked for more money. He could have asked for more fame. He didn't, because without wisdom, those things disappear. Because there are people who are constantly in that victim mentality, that victim mindset. I wasn't given anything. I didn't inherit anything. That is everybody. That's 99% of people. Solomon inherited a kingdom, But there's a saying that I've heard Jim Rohn say, if $1 million landed in your lap right now, you better become a millionaire real quick. It is not the money that makes you successful. It's your ability to handle that money. And that is an identity thing. That's not a resource thing. That's not something that requires you to inherit anything. That is a mentality of pursuing wisdom over everything first. Do not chase money if you do not have wisdom. Lottery winners go broke because they don't have the wisdom to manage it. Wisdom before money. This applies to everything in your business, obviously, your clients, your investments, everything. When it comes to money, you need wisdom first. Lesson number 5, never lose common sense and discernment. I'm going to read the verse again, and then I'll give you my takeaways from that. In verses 21 and 24, it says, don't lose sight of common sense and discernment. You can go to bed without fear. You will lie down and sleep soundly. This was even in the last video that I did in Proverbs chapter 2. Common sense is not so common, and the Bible is very clear about that one. Common sense is not so common because God is the one who gives common sense. People who understand the Lord, who love God, they have common sense. So why is it not so common? There you go. That's why. But the funny thing about common sense is that people get so smart that they stop using their common sense. Like they think they need the special strategies, the new tips and tricks video. They're waiting for that video to come out before they take any new steps. They're so smart that they stop using their common sense. Doesn't make sense, but I guess that's part of it. They stop using their common sense. It doesn't make sense. But if you have it, this is the thing, what verse 24 says, but if you have this common sense and discernment, you will not just run a good business, you will be able to go to bed every single night knowing you did everything that you could, and you will be able to wake up the next day excited to do even more. That's not something a lot of people have, even if they have a large income. If their business is running, they don't have peace of mind. They don't have what it says in 24, you can go to bed without fear. There are people with money who still live in constant fear. And where you see this in your business is very clear in your investing decisions. People, they see the ups and downs, and we help people with this a lot. When we're creating wealth strategies for people, I see this every single day. Investing can't be an emotional decision. You can do your research and have emotional reasoning behind it, but at the end of the day, it needs to be a common sense strategy. People who try to overcomplicate it, that's when things go down. That's when you're left at the end of the day thinking like, oh my, am I going to lose all my money? Or you do lose your money and you're still thinking like, what just happened? It's because you were doing way too much. I heard a story. I forget who said it. I wish I could give credit to whoever it was, but it wasn't even their story. They were just telling it. But this consultant or some kind of mindset coach or whoever it was, but they were helping the CEO of a very large company. They were helping him because he was having these problems. It's no fulfillment, no peace, nothing. He had money, but no peace. They were helping this guy, and he said, you need to take 15 minutes every single day and just sit down and do nothing. Just meditate for 15 minutes. And the CEO tells him, I don't have 15 minutes to do nothing. I don't have 15 minutes to do that. And the coach says, if you don't have 15 minutes, you need an hour. That's how important it is. Let's just think about it. If you don't have 15 minutes to stop, do nothing but think, how are you going to run a successful business? You can't think. That's what kind of decisions are you making if you don't have time to think? This is also part of honoring God with your best, making sure your mind is healthy, not just physically. You're not just physically rested, but mentally capable, mentally strong. Your mind, your visualizations, your mindset, that is, from what I've seen and from the billionaires I've talked to, that is most of business, everything up here. So imagine what kind of decisions you're making if you think you can't take 15 minutes to just stop and think, okay? Now, up until this point, we have talked about running a business, and it's very operational, and that's what we're here to do. But this is probably my favorite one because it's a really strong gut check. This is the separator from all the other lessons. The people who understand this, these are the people who are going to do something great. And before I tell it to you, lesson number 6, before I tell it to you, you have to answer this question. How close are you to becoming the person God created you to be? How close are you to reaching that potential? And I'm asking this in the sense where if you get to the pearly white gates and God presents you with the person he created you to be, how close are you going to be to that person? Are you going to have to look God in the face and say, ooh, that is not me. I'm nothing like that. Is that what you're going to have to do? Or are you going to be able to say that is exactly who I am right now? Are you going to get to the pearly white gates and see all the people that you didn't help? Or are you going to see the people that you did help? Lesson number 6, do not underestimate the damage of your inaction. In verse 27, it says, do not withhold good from those who deserve it when it's in your power to help them. In business, especially in business, not just in business, but especially in business, you don't always see the effect you're having on people. Your service to somebody else has a ripple effect that you will never understand. When I help somebody with a budget, when we create wealth strategies for people, that oftentimes just starts with setting up a budget that I don't get paid for. But why do we still do it? Why does my team still do it? Because we don't know the ripple effect it's going to have on the entire bloodline after, on the entire generation after. There are families who are in generations of debt. How another human could do that to somebody else, I don't know. But there are families who are in generations of debt, and all it could have taken was one person to help them understand basic laws of finance, how to understand your debt, how to set up a budget, how to control all these different things. It would have taken one person to teach somebody down the line, and that entire bloodline would have been different. You do not underestimate the damage you are causing by your inaction. The business you haven't started yet, it's still serving nobody. It's not helping anybody. Those who can understand this are doing God's work. It is not just about you anymore. It is not just about making money. It's not just about profit and what I can do today. It's about what's going to happen to an entire generation after. I don't know what business you're in. I just know if it's not that serious, it's not going to be that big. If you are not taking it that serious where you don't believe you are helping generations, you might want to consider another business. We meet those people all the time, and we recruit a lot of people. We teach them very different basic things, but those basic things changes entire generations after them. Your dreams, when you give up on your dreams, you are withholding good from somebody else, when the way we are called to reach our dreams is by serving other people. That's in 1 Peter chapter 4. Use your gifts to serve other people well. And I'm not going to get into another book right now. This is about Proverbs 3. You can do more. You can do more, and sometimes that more is just taking the next step to help the next person. Stop being scared to call somebody to get them on Zoom or to get them in a meeting or to get referrals, whatever it actually is. Just do it, because you don't know the ripple effect it's going to have. And with all of this, I have 2 possible options for you to move on with this. One, if you just want to build a good business with good people, I'm not going to talk too much about this, but that is the reason why I have the 7-minute wealth audit. It's in the description if you want to read about it and see what it actually is and go get it. It's free. It's there. That is for people who want to do good things with good people. We help people understand these basics. But other than that, if you are just looking to learn more and more, that's what my channel is. So go ahead and hit the subscribe button. I'm trying to grow the channel, so if you can send it to another person, that's the only other thing that I'm going to ask of you. Otherwise, I will see you in the next video, and we'll talk about Proverbs chapter 4.